Hello and welcome back to my channel. I'm trying not to laugh, my neighbour's outside talking to her dog and it's quite amusing. Right, we've been to group, we're back early again because my cameraman has a job to go to. And it's quite funny because although I consider myself to be a really capable blind woman, give me a Canon camera and a MacBook Pro and I couldn't upload a YouTube video if my life depended on it. So I am relying on Joe for this. So hence we're early again. We've been at Costa, picked up my coffee, that'll get me through the next couple of hours. And I'm going to start today with a couple of bits of advice. Now I don't usually attempt to give advice, or I try not to actually, but two things today that I really, one for me is never ever ever get on the scales more than once. I totally fell foul of that this morning and it was my own fault, but I think what I'm often, if Joe ever gets weighed at home, I'll say to him, just take the first reading. Don't be saying, oh, you know, I'm moving the scales and trying again. Take the first reading. And I went to group this morning and chose not to do that, but I'll explain it in a minute. My second bit of advice is parallel to this, and that is don't go for blind weigh-ins. I've never seen any good come of blind weigh-ins. I've experienced it in group, I've experienced it on YouTube, I've experienced it with friends. Now, I'm going to tell you why. I got up this morning feeling $1 million, feeling totally on top of the world, and feeling really slim and really healthy and full of energy and all those things. And if somebody had said to me, come on, I'll give you a £1,000 bet of how you've done a group this morning, I'd have said, go for £1,000 for a £0.5 loss. Yeah, definitely. I'd have risked £1,000 on that this morning. So I went to group full of confidence, feeling great, wearing my trousers that I always wear for Slimming World, which are a size 8, and they actually were looser in the waist than they usually are. And I thought, it's all right because I was set my target last week. In a fortnight I'm going out for a really big meal, taking a friend out for her birthday, and we've got this really big fancy meal booked. And I'm thinking if I can slip just £1 under my target, so down to sort of 8 stone 13, I'm giving myself a bit of wiggle room for that meal. So if I could get a £0.5 down this week and maybe a £0.5 next week, you have all this going on in your head, and I know we all do it because we all talk about it. So that's my thinking. I got up this morning, felt great. Yeah, I would have bet £1,000 on a £0.5 loss. So I go to group, I get on the scales. I don't pay this week because I'm at Target and I've chosen to go that way. I get on the scales and the lovely lady says, you've gained £1. And I thought, pigs in space. I do not believe that. I have had a really tough week this week, but I have been 100% on plan and loved it. So me, being the ego type person I can be, said, I want to get on again. Because I'm thinking, that's not right. Not the way I'm feeling today, that is not right. So as I got off the scales and got back on again, I jokingly said to Joe, be my bloody luck to be £1.5 pounds heavier. And the woman went, and you are. Bless her. I was. I am. So this week I've gained £1.5 pounds. And you know what? It doesn't matter. Because I'm in Target. And it's life, and it's what's going to continue to happen over the rest of my life, hopefully. Up and down, up and down, up and down. But it just shows you. And the reason I said don't go for blind weigh-ins is because if I had gone to group today on a blind weigh-in, which for a blind person would have been quite amusing. But if I'd gone to group today on a blind weigh-in, I'd have gone in there, I'd have felt $1 million, I'd have been confident that I'd lost, I'd have come out and I'd have probably thought in a very smug way, I bet that was a good result today. And I might have let it slip a bit because, you know, some of us are prone to doing that. Or I might have just carried on plan, which is what I intend to do. But I would have been lulling myself into a false sense of security. And for me today, working this plan has to be real. And as I just said, touched on briefly, we've had a really tough week this week. It's been doctors and hospitals and all those sort of things and other stuff. And it's real life. And there isn't anybody watching this who doesn't know what real life feels like. And my life is no worse, no harder. Our life is no worse, no harder than anybody else's. I'm not looking for sympathy. I'm just saying that in spite of life, I find that eating this way is the best way for me. Because even though I could have come up with excuses every day this week why I couldn't stick to plan, it actually benefits me to put plan first and say, if I'm going to do this, and I am a very methodical person, I'm the sort of person who gets out of bed every morning and does everything in a very routine order. You know, the first thing I do is go to the loo, the second thing I do is wash my hands, clean my teeth, then I make my bed, then I think about, then it's a shower, then I am a really, really methodical person. I work like clockwork. But I find that doing this plan in a very methodical way actually keeps me safe, and it keeps me sane, and it makes it easier. And this week, if I hadn't had my plan to put first every day, I could have cracked every day this week, big time. And I'm so grateful that, like, even though I've had a gain of 1.5 pounds, and I'm not unhappy about that because I'm in Target and that's all that matters today. Even though I've had a gain, it doesn't then make my brain go, you need to feel sorry for yourself and do something about commiserating over that. Or, you know, you're really angry, eat your feelings. Or, I don't deserve that. Because I obviously do deserve that because it's happened. But if I say to you, what have I done differently this week? Nothing, because I don't. The only thing, and Joe and I were just talking about this in the car, the only thing I have done over the last couple of weeks is let my fruit creep up. But that's fruit, and that's free or speed, and that's not, and I said to Joe in the car, you know, a couple of extra apples for 100 calories isn't going to make me fat. And he went, Mother, a couple of extra apples isn't 100 calories. You know, it's more than that. Be realistic, you eat large Russes. But do you know what I mean? I know that when I'm working this plan to the best of my abilities for the best results, a couple of pieces of fruit a day is what suits me. So is it the fact that I've been pushing the fruit up and having, I think I had 5 pieces of fruit yesterday and I've had 4 or 5 every day this week? Is it that because I know sugar doesn't suit me and that's natural sugar? Is it that, I don't know, sins-wise, I was just looking at my list. I had 12 sins on 5 days this week and 14 sins on 2 days this week. So I haven't gone over my sins, but I have gone down a bit on my sins. Because ordinarily I am over the 100 for the week. And what's 12 out of, well, 60, 70, 88 I've had this week. And I'm usually between 100 and 105. I don't know, do those things make a difference? I don't know that it's that fine-tuned. I couldn't start on a Monday, well no, Saturday for me is the start of my week. I couldn't start on a Saturday and eat exactly the same things I ate last week. My meals vary, not massively, but they vary. I couldn't start on a Saturday and swear I'm going to walk the same number of steps, do the same amount of housework and whatever that I did last week, because life varies. The amount of stress in a week varies, but I'm not going to stand here and tell you that being stressed is going to make me fat, because it's not. I know today for me, and this is about my journey, I know today for me that I'm the only person who chooses what goes in my mouth. And that's what matters. The other stuff is all incidental because you can't really measure it. You might wear your Fitbit, I mean I haven't got mine on at the moment, but I might wear a Fitbit, or I might carry my phone and it supposedly counts my steps, or I might do what Joe does when he's seriously measuring things. He's got a proper heart rate monitor and everything. I can do all of that, but the bottom line is most of that's only an estimate. You can't measure things exactly. I might go out for a walk with Joe and we might do 15,000 steps. Well, I might do 15,000. That would show us 13.5 on Joe's because he's got longer legs. So he would say, today I did 13,500 steps. I'd say, today we did 15. I'm hooked onto his arm, we've both done the same. We've both got different readings. He weighs more than I do. So is he going to burn more calories when he's walking than I do? It's not an exact science. So the only thing I can control, and the only thing I regularly attempt to control, is what goes in my mouth. The rest of it is all going to be incidental. And this week I have eaten 100% on plan, because that's the way I like to eat. I don't look for an excuse to come off plan these days. I don't eat sugary foods because I can't. It doesn't suit me. I'm finding now that eating the buckwheat and things like that instead of durum wheat, actually I don't get bloated at all. That's a lovely feeling, and I think that's possibly why I'm feeling slimmer in myself. So yeah, 2 bits of advice: get on the scales once and believe it, and don't blind weigh, because you can lull yourself into a false sense of security. Because I think 99 times out of 100 with people like me, and maybe you, because you know you're obviously interested in Slimming World, it's all in here. You know, and this, the thinking, can actually sabotage us a lot more than the food would if we stopped the stinking thinking. I'm reading something at the moment on Audible. It's not actually a book, it's a series of interviews by Ruby Wax, and it's called No Brainer, It's All in the Mind. And it's actually fascinating, because she is talking about things like, what's the word, Joe? Neuroplasticity? Yeah. How you can actually change your mind, literally change your mind, by the way you think. And it's really interesting. She also talks a lot about mindfulness, and she practices mindfulness. And I didn't ever really understand what mindfulness was until I watched Beyond Authentic a while ago, and Lisa talks about it. And that's made me develop a bit more of an interest in it. But I think subconsciously or subliminally I was already doing it, because I had some really good counselling years ago from a blind counsellor. I actually found myself a blind counsellor because I thought you might understand where I was coming from. But he actually taught me to live in the now. And that is basically what mindfulness is, isn't it? Living in the now. I don't think anybody would ever do that 100% of the time. It's not possible, because we're all going to wonder what's ahead, and we're all going to remember what was behind. But yeah, living in the now. And that helps me with food, because if I am very much focused in the now and remember that I eat 3 times a day, it's enough for anybody. When we were children, everybody seemed to do that in the 50s, because there wasn't that much food around. One of the fun things Joe and I were just talking about, we went to the Costa drive-through on our way home from group, and one of the things we kind of have a bit of a giggle about, and I suppose it might not be funny to some people, but it amuses us. We like to, I can't see of course, but Joe and I talk about what people have in their trolley. And we were coming out of the Costa drive-through, and we paused to let a lady cross in front of us who'd just come out of Aldi, and her trolley was full of crisps and quavers and cake and just junk, wasn't it, Joe? Yeah,
it wasn't a very healthy trolley.
Yeah, and I'm not criticising that lady, this is an observation. I'm just bloody grateful today that my trolley doesn't look like that, because believe me, it used to, and it probably looked a lot worse. But without being unkind, if you look at what's in somebody's trolley, it often reflects the size they are. And I know that for me, that was always the truth, because my trolley would have been full of pies and gateaus and crisps and white bread and big blocks of cheese and butter and cream and all the things I don't eat today. And my life has totally turned around, and I'm not saying that to brag, I'm saying that because this is what Slimming World has done for me. My life has totally turned around. We have a friend who is housebound and in his 80s, and we got an emergency phone call the other night. We've got a problem. Peter needs his pork pie, and Morrison's don't sell the one he wants anymore. So I sent a text to Joe. Peter needs a Port Farms pork pie this size, can you find one? So on his way home, Joe went to Sainsbury's, then he went to Asda, and then he found the pork pie. And he brought it home and he put it in our fridge. And that was a pork pie in our fridge for nearly 24 hours. And do you know what? Even though that is the food I would have killed for at one time, it never entered my head to eat it or think about it or consider it. It was just a pork pie in the fridge. That, for me, is possibly the biggest non-scale victory I've had since I started Slimming World. Because believe me, my husband would tell you if he was standing here now, and he'll be watching this at some point. There was a time in my life when I have had stand up screaming abdabs at my husband to go and get me a pork pie at midnight. You know, we live near a 24-hour Asda, so it wasn't that difficult for him. But I would have killed for a pork pie. I lived on the damn stuff. To have one in my fridge for 24 hours and not even give it a thought, massive non-scale victory.
But that doesn't mean we're going to go out and get another one and keep
No,
it in
it
the fridge
doesn't.
just in case.
No, we're definitely
we're not doing
putting one
that.
in the fridge just in case. But it was,
Yeah,
wasn't it?
it's a good.
I mean,
It's an
Joe
achievement, but
said he had
we're
even
not going
thought,
to keep it.
he had even thought about moving it into the other fridge.
I did.
Oh, you moved it?
Yeah, I moved it.
Just in case I
Just
got
in
up
case
the
you got
night.
sneaky, yeah.
You see? But it never crossed my mind. And that makes me so happy today. Sod the 1.5 pounds I've gained, that don't matter. It's the freedom that I love on this planet. It's the absolute freedom. I don't have to go out and buy pork pie. I don't have to smother it in Heinz salad cream. I don't have to buy endless bars of chocolate. I mean, I just can't believe the freedom of knowing that those things have got absolutely no power over me anymore. When I used to be so powerless. I just lived like a big, huge, huge person in misery and addiction. And I'm not today. Anyway, that's enough of that. I got my Christmas bauble from Group. That's 4 I've got now, so it's my 4th Christmas at Group. I have a tall chest of drawers in my bedroom, and one by one I am actually tying them to the handles. So I think I've got 10 handles. I'm on the 4th bauble this year, and mine stay on there all year round as a reminder. So, haven't decided what to put on the back of it, but I think it might just be stay at Target, because that's what I want to do now for always. A couple of food things, well, food and drink things bringing to you today. The first one is a new milk that I've tried. Joe suggested this, although we don't usually have nuts in the house because of his allergies. Cashew nut milk. I got it, Joe, didn't I? I got it. You can check that. Did I get the wrong one?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, cashew nut milk. This is really, really nice. At night, you know, last thing at night, I quite like a really milky coffee. Now, have you got my mug? Or have I left that on the side as well?
No, got it.
Dawn, who's Dawn Evans, you'll see her name pop up in lots of people's comments. She is such a good friend. Love her to bits. Dawn bought me this amazing mug for my birthday, and this mug will take 450 mils of milk. So I put 450 mils in, I stick it in the microwave, get it red hot, put a big spoon of coffee in, and I have a really milky coffee at night. Now 450 mils of this cashew nut milk is 4.5 sins, but oh my god, it's worth it. It's absolutely lovely. And the other thing that we found yesterday in Marks and Spencer's, passion fruit in a sachet. So it's just the pulp from the inside of the fruit. What a handy way to buy it. How many grams in there, Joe?
90.
And does it say how many passion fruits that would be?
It says 1 serving of your 5 a day.
1 serving of 5 a day. Now I've been buying the giant passion fruits in Marks, which are £2 for 2, and I've been taking the inside out of 2 of those every morning as part of my breakfast. So that was costing me £2 a day. That sachet is £1, and I don't have to do the work. So I think that's going to be a good way. And if they count that as 1 serving, then I'll count it as 1 piece of fruit. But there's certainly more pulp in that than there was in my 2 fruits that I've been having every morning. You can hear my washing machine going there. Right, so I think that's it for today. As I say, we have had a hard week, but life is always going to happen. And if I can get through without picking up the food, and not even thinking about picking up the food, then I think I have made changes in my life that are standing me in good stead. I don't need to white knuckle it anymore, but I'm not saying I've cracked it. I'm not saying this is it, I can do it, this is perfection, I don't need to focus anymore, none of that. I think what I am saying, apart from Joe shut that kitchen door, I think what I am saying is, sorry, he's left the door open. I think what I am saying is, this is worth doing. This is really worth doing. And the longer I do it, I don't want to use the glib phrase the easier it gets, but I will say the longer I do it, the more normal it's becoming. So I'm not having to make such hard decisions. I just automatically go this way. So thanks for being there, thanks for watching, thanks for any comments, and we'll see you next week. Remember, works if you work it. You might not get the perfect result this week, but it'll happen next week. See you then. Bye.